The Chinese-linked company that operated an illegal potential bioweapons lab in California now wants to reopen a brand new lab near an airport in California. We've been covering this all week. Nobody else has. New court documents show at least 20 infectious agents, 800 different chemicals, and 1,000 disease-ridden mice, some of whom were bioengineered, were found inside an illegal lab operating in an abandoned warehouse in Reedley, California. Court documents show people associated with the lab told officials from the city of Reedley and Fresno that the companies that allegedly owned all of this stuff were located back in China. The South Central Fresno Medical Manufacturing Company, whose 1,000 mice and thousands of gallons of biological material wound up in the Reedley warehouse, evidently only needs approval from the city of Fresno to now move in. Universal Meditech is actively seeking clearance from the city of Fresno to reopen at a location across the street from Fresno Yosemite International Airport. Wonder if there's any flights to China from that airport. We'll see. Last night on the program, the Fresno, California City Councilman said people have a right to know about what is going on and why you could have such a dangerous lab operating in a residential neighborhood without any approvals, and nobody seems all that concerned about it.
The fact is, we don't know much about these folks. We don't know if this is a company that is sponsored by China. I certainly suspect that it is. You laid it out right. How many other labs are going on? Also, a lot of this material was disposed of illegally. We believe it went to a landfill. And as you mentioned, our country was decimated by COVID-19 from a Wuhan lab. And this seems to be a Wuhan lab 2.0 in Reedley, California.
The county had been made aware of the illegal lab back in March. The public was not made aware until July 25th. Joining us now, Edward Smith, reporter for GVWire, covering the federal investigation of the unlicensed lab in Fresno. Wow. All right. Do we have any idea who owns this thing and is actually running it?
There are some court documents linking a number of people to the Chinese lab. I shouldn't say Chinese lab, to the laboratory in South Fresno. They recently changed CEOs this year, and yeah, so that those people, we haven't been able to get a hold of them. We have reached out to some of the other people named in the court documents, but as of right now, we haven't been able to be in contact with them.
Yeah. Wang Zolin, the mice were genetically engineered to catch and carry the COVID-19 virus. Yakim Yao, president of Prestige Biotech, on and on and on. How is it just in any way possible that these people would be allowed to reopen a new lab after having a lab with HIV, pneumonia, I think it was rubella as well, hepatitis, malaria, E. coli, herpes? They can have all of these pathogens that you're supposed to have airlocks and God knows what else in terms of safety protocols in place. They had none of it, and now they want to reopen?
So the Reedley city manager described the operation in Reedley, which is more of a warehouse than a lab, described it as they were operating under the cover of night. They had some disputes with their landlord in South Central Fresno, and from what it seems like, they moved their material to Reedley, having been unable to find a location in Fresno, and so they signed a 6-month lease there, so they were just temporarily keeping it there. And what the Reedley city manager described it as is that they did not want to be found because they knew it was going to be temporary. So they do have a new building has been built across the street from the airport. The developer described it as a spec building, meaning that they didn't have a tenant, but they are the main applicant for that building.
All right, so Edward, look, you and I are both reporters. I used to be on the street as well. And when people go to great lengths to hide what they're doing or where their money comes from or who owns the companies, you got to start asking more questions. And do we really have any idea why they had 1,000 mice? They were engineering them to be infected with COVID, and they had all of these really serious pathogens in some warehouse that they were trying to keep secret.
So what county officials are telling us is that the materials that they had there, including the mice, wouldn't have been out of the ordinary had they had the proper licensing and permitting. Now, granted, they did have quite a few alarming materials, but as per the county health officials, nothing there was out of the ordinary had they had the proper licensing. Now, some of that stuff was not properly kept. They were discussing, they were begging to keep the power on just to keep the freezers, just to keep the freezers cold.
Yeah, but do we have any idea what this company does or purports to do and might actually be doing? I mean, you can understand how it's kind of scary.
So they do manufacture pregnancy tests as well as COVID tests. There was an FDA recall on COVID tests distributed by them because they did not receive the proper FDA recall. There was actually also a lawsuit against. There was actually a ruling against them for another health company out of the East Coast, $2.3 million. And some of that was the contractor was not happy with the suppliers that they were providing, with the supplies that they were providing.
Yeah. Making pregnancy tests and defective COVID tests. It almost sounds like a perfect cover story for something else. I know you'll keep investigating it. Thanks, Edward.
Thank you.